Welcome back. I'm Larry Yatch, founder of PlanSight and former Navy SEAL. This is going to be your first core content lesson, and this lesson is absolutely fundamental to not only this class, but I would argue just about anything in your life where you have to coordinate action with others. And being human, we have to coordinate action with others in just about every aspect of our life just to survive. And so this lesson is going to be critically important for your personal life, your family life, and your business life. And it's going to be a foundation upon which we build for the rest of this course. Now, with this, not only am I going to talk, but I'm going to have some slides to show you. And those are going to show up to my left, your right, here in a couple minutes. And the reason we do that is that we know we can't fulfill our purpose of making this a better, stronger country unless you can not only learn this information, but more importantly, take it and teach it to those that you love, that you care for, you work with. So we're very free with our information, meaning we're going to give you as much of us as we possibly can so you can not only learn it, but then teach it. And the best way to fully implement this information in your life is to teach it. So feel free to take this information and use it as needed. So I'm going to start here with a picture. Now this picture is a little bit older, but in this picture you see two very important people in my life. The first is my oldest son, Colt, and the other is our 140-pound Rottweiler, Fluffy. Yes, we have a 140-pound Rottweiler named Fluffy. At least we did. He unfortunately passed on a number of years ago. Now, in this picture, you have animal and man, or at least Fluffy and boy. But either way, there's a significant difference between animals and humans. And when I ask this question when I'm teaching live, I say, okay, so what's the difference? What's one of the core differences between humans and animals? I get all sorts of answers. I get answers like animals don't have feelings or emotions. And they've proven that wrong through studies of elephants that actually will cry and mourn the loss of one of their family. I've heard soul or awareness of self, right? Because really having a soul is all about having an awareness of self. And they've done studies with rats where they've presented the rat with a task and they've increased the difficulty of that task, where if the rat does the task, they get the reward. Now, if it was just a pure conditioned response, when the task got harder, the rat would just instantaneously keep trying. But they can prove that the rat has an assessment, or will make an assessment of that the amount of effort necessary to get the reward isn't worth it, which proves that they have awareness of self. So throughout all these different answers, there's only one key answer that works no matter what. And that answer is the core difference between animals and humans is language. Now notice that I use the word language, not communication. Animals communicate, right? Fluffy will bark and Fluffy will growl, but he doesn't language. Languaging and language is very different than communication. The key difference is in the flexibility of language. So let me prove it to you. If I was standing there with a pad of paper and I looked at you and said, hey, I need to write a note. Can I have that pen? You would hand me a pen and I'd take that pen, I could write my note. So we just were able to coordinate action, right? I wanted to write, you had a writing implement, you saw the notepad, I asked for the pen, you handed me the pen, I'm able to write my note. We coordinated action. Now, in that same respect, if then you looked at me funny and I took that pen, I stabbed it into the middle of your chest and ran out of the room, and there's someone else in that room, and the police showed up and asked that witness, what weapon did Larry use? They would say pen. So all of a sudden, that witness was able to coordinate action with the police around a weapon using the same word pen, as we were able to coordinate action when I needed it as a writing implement. So a pen changed from a writing implement to a weapon, and we were able to coordinate action on both fronts using the same word. Well, with that, what language enables us to do is coordinate action, but it's dependent on a shared background of experience. So we were able to coordinate action when I wanted to write a note, and the witness was able to coordinate action with the police when they were talking about a weapon using the same word pen. But it required having a shared background of experience. Let me prove it to you. So when we know that we've communicated is only possible, right? The only way we know we've communicated is when there's effective action, right? If I'm saying a word and you're not effectively coordinating with me, then there hasn't been communication. So it's very important for us to be expert at identifying and observing actions, because what we can do as human beings, right? I always say that we're just big hairless apes that lie to ourselves, right? We're really, really good at telling ourselves a story, all using words, right? Tell ourselves a story and fully believing it, right? Have you ever had this experience with someone where you ask them to do something for you and they say, sure, no problem, I'll take care of it for you, and they don't? Right? And a lot of times they had no intention to deceive. They truly believed that they were going to do it. Sure, I got it. Right? Because they're lying to themselves, maybe about their capacity or their capability. So the only way to tell that you've effectively communicated is not by what someone says, by what they actually do. So getting back to this, let me prove the need for a shared background of experience. Right? I'm writing a note, I ask for a pen, you hand me a writing implement. I stab you in the chest, witness observes it, the police come in, and they're able to coordinate action with the police around it being a weapon. Well, what if I ask you for a kalamu? Could we coordinate action? Do you know what a kalamu is? Now, odds are, right, and believe me, I've tested a lot of words. Kalamu is the first one I've actually been 100% successful at someone not knowing exactly what I'm talking about. You're probably sitting there shaking your head saying, Larry, I have no idea what kalamu means. Well, that's because we don't have a shared background of experience. You don't know or speak the language that kalamu comes from, right? My background of experience is going to Google Translate, typing in pen, and then picking the oddest language I could find, which was Swahili. And so what kalamu is Swahili for pen. Now, this is what is the most amazing part. If at the end of this lesson in weeks, if I ask for a kalamu and say, hey, it's on a quiz, right? So we have a quiz and there's a word. What is kalamu? I bet 100% of you type in the word pen. Think of how amazing that is. In 3 seconds, right? All I had to do was create a shared background of experience with you. As soon as I created a shared background of experience, as soon as I connected your existing background of experience, pen, with a new one, kalamu, we connected those dots. Now, all of a sudden, you now are able to coordinate action with someone. And this is the coolest part. So I was once in a cab in Washington, D.C., and as usual, it was an Uber. I asked the Uber driver, where are you from? And he said, Swaliland. I don't even know the country. I'm like, do you have a kalamu? And the guy turned around and handed me a pen. So there I was, years later, able to coordinate action with someone in their language because of a shared background of experience. So let's recap here. We've got the fact that the ability to coordinate action depends on having a shared background of experience. If you don't have a shared background of experience on the most fundamental language or the fundamental level in language, you can't communicate. If you can't communicate, it's impossible to coordinate action. If you can't coordinate action, you can't be on the same team. You can't have help. You can't generate support. So, on a most fundamental level, if we're going to be able to coordinate action together, we have to create a shared background of experience. As soon as we do that, that gives us the ability to build upon it. So, going back to where we started, why is this important? Why is language, the ability to coordinate the ability to coordinate action, why is language so important? So we're about to do a class on leadership, on managing, on following, on teams. Now, I can make the assumption that because you speak English, that we have the same background of experience. But the one thing I know for sure, absolutely for sure, is the fact that my background of experience around leadership, around following, around teams is different than yours. And so if I made the assumption that when I say leadership, when I say team, when I say following, that we think the same thing, I'm making a huge mistake. There is no way for us to build upon this shaky foundation if we don't establish a shared background of experience. And so that's what we're going to do. A lot of this course that you're going to be in is going to be a vocabulary lesson. I'm going to be sharing distinctions with you that are much more effective than the ones that you already have. And notice that I use the word distinction. One of the things that you're going to find with me is I'm very, very precise with my language, because through language, we develop the power to influence change. So I'm going to be very precise. So I use the word distinction instead of definition. In my world, a definition describes something, but it's not necessarily useful. Like I can describe a motorcycle, but not know how to use it. A distinction is useful. A distinction enables you to take that particular thing and actually use it. So I could have read the Webster definition of language to you, but you wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. It just would have been descriptive. But you now have the distinction of language, and the distinction of language is that language gives you the ability to coordinate action through a shared background of experience. I'm so glad to have you here, and I can't wait to see you next time.